Welcome back to the show. I'm Jenny McCarthy Wahlberg. Great book alert. Remember this, write it down, go online and buy it right now. It's called The Warrior Challenge. 8 quests for boys to grow up with kindness, courage, and grit. I love it. John Beede is joining us, the author. Hi, John. Welcome to my show.
Hey, Jenny. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I need this book more than you know. I've had 18-year-olds in this house since quarantine started, and
that's a lot of young male energy, that's for sure.
There's a lot of testosterone in this house. But, I didn't grow up having any little girls, so I'm kind of used to it. But for some reason, I'm surrounded by boys. And this book, to me, is one that many moms will, and dads, mind you, will appreciate. There's so many mixed messages about, for boys right now. It's like there's sometimes a war on boys, whether that's, stop being so toxic masculine or, our old school ways of like, don't cry, you're a man. It's got to be very confusing. Is that kind of one of the reasons you wanted to help out our youth?
You're spot on in seeing that and noticing that. I'm sure that all those 6 young men are going through that. And I personally see young men being told, if you want to be a man in today's society, you need to, and you want to express your power or your strength as a guy, then you should deceive and lie and gaslight and project and blame and tear other people down. And that's the message that I think that young men are getting right now. So this book, in my mind, had to be written, had to be put into the hands of young men so that they have a better model. If you think about, like, is there a better model out there right now? We couldn't find one. And when the publisher came to me and said, let's make that, let's redefine what masculinity is, which is the balance of what you're saying. There is a good time to be tough, and there is a good time to be gentle. Yes, there is a good time to never give up and never quit, but there's also a good time to say, you know what, we can let this one go. Let's pick better battles. How do we teach our young men to be vulnerable, to set boundaries? That's what's in this.
100%. It's all about balance. No matter what topic we talk about, it's about the balance. Where did you find the answers for this book?
Well, I picked them from 2 places. I'm a mountaineer. I've climbed the tallest mountain on every continent. That includes Mount Everest. I've kite surfed every major ocean in the world. I've been caught in a tribal warfare in Papua New Guinea or in Indonesia. Wow. So I've personally been around some of the wildest, craziest, manly men you could imagine. So
it sounds like it.
That was half of it. But the other half of it was looking at our society today and finding the role models that I thought that young men would be drawn to in case they're not drawn to my own stories. So I put young men in a rite of passage. They start the book in Africa. They're being challenged by a Maasai warrior. Then they're jumping over the Great Wall of China on a skateboard. Then they're dirt off-road racing in Mexico. They're escaping from a communist country. They're rock climbing. Then they're an Antarctic explorer. I put them in the shoes of these real-life heroes. And those are the role models whose virtues and values I'm presenting as, here's a better model for what it is to be a balanced guy in today's world.
Is anyone doing it right in anywhere around the world?
Well, that was actually the biggest struggle I had when writing this, was if these are the values I'm asking that we should strive to, I've failed personally at every single one of them at some point in my life. And so is anybody doing all of it right? No. And I put strongly into the book, like, you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to step up. Kids today get so many messages of, you got to get a perfect score on your ACT. You got to be the team captain. You got to date the perfect person. You got to be the best role model for all your friends. And that's why kids today have so much anxiety, especially compounding it with everything they see on social media. So
100%.
I'm like, let's tell young men it's okay to not be perfect, and you just have to get going in the right direction.
I want to plug the name of the book again in case people are like, say the name again. The Warrior Challenge, 8 quests for boys to grow up with kindness, courage, and grit. What age group are we talking about that is perfect for this book?
We wrote it originally for like 8 to 12-year-olds, but it's really landing with a kid once he's hit puberty. So I really like, we see some kids starting at 6 now, but like 10 to 18 is when students are reading it, getting it, and understanding what's meant to be in it. And more than just for young men, it's for parents to be the warrior guide going through with their young man right now. So it's not just this random guy. Like, I don't have kids. I've just worked with close to 1 million live audience member students when I'm giving my speeches. But if you as a parent can take quarantine and transform it from this boring time of virtual learning and make it into a warrior boot camp by reading this book with your young man and saying, like, here's the values our family goes for, that's where the magic is at.
100%. We just had an author the other day talking about the same thing, but for girls, little girls, how to, teach young girls to grow up with resilience and empowerment. And awesome. I was talking about how important it is for us moms to be those role models. We have to. If we can't really expect our teachers to do it or anybody else, the kids are looking at us. They act like us. They parrot us. And so it's even more important to not just throw this book at your kid, but to read it yourself. Be reminded of the good virtues and the values, and try to change within, knowing your child is going to imitate you.
We're still animals, right? And just like a little goose walking across the sidewalk is going to follow its mom. Same thing with kids. If you ask your child to be vulnerable and say all the things that are hurting them, but you're not willing to go there yourself, what example do they possibly have, right? Like, right. If you say, I'm confused in the pandemic, I'm not sure where to get started, but I'm trying. That gives your child permission, number one, to not be so hard on you thinking that you should be perfect. And number two, it also gives them a model for saying, hey, it's okay for me to ask for help when I need it. And here's an example of how to go for help. So that's why it should be
well said. One thing that I was always confused about was whether or not to cry in front of your kids. Because growing up, my mom would have the smile. She'd grin through shit that was going wrong in the house. Like, it wasn't, the shit that was happening in the house was not matching the emotion on her face. And it was very confusing. I'm like, how is she smiling? It doesn't make sense in my belly of how I'm feeling. And it's not matching. Whereas now, from an older perspective, she's trying to protect us, to say everything's fine, even though there's shit being thrown around this house right now and chaos, but I'm holding it together, so don't you guys worry. Where are we in terms of telling parents how far they show over their emotions? Because some parents I know use their kids as like a Kleenex and be like, my boyfriend didn't call me, Bobby. So where's that line?
Well, I'm not a psychologist, so that's difficult to answer with certainty. But I can tell you what I know from my own experiences in dealing with some of my own shit, as you say, is if a parent uses their child as a Kleenex like that and dumps all the emotion on them, then that child will probably either end up as a empath themselves that is like incredibly over on the crying side and overly emotional and won't have a hard time functioning. Or on the opposite end of the spectrum, they become a narcissist. So it's not good to use your child as a Kleenex. Yet, think about the damage at a funeral. If you're the parent and you want to stay strong for your child and you sit there emotionless, what does that model for the young person in your life? Yes, model strength in times of chaos. Yet when it's needed to be shown, here's how you grieve, go there. Not only for yourself, but also for your kid, and let that emotion out in that moment.
That's so well said. So well said. Hopefully we are getting better at parenting, but it does, because if I compare 70s dad, me and Donnie always talk about 70s dad. It was like, shut up, get in the car, and you're no seatbelt. They're smoking in the front seat. It's just, it was a crazy time for parenting. And we think we're getting better, but our kids are having more and more anxiety. Depression is through the roof. It's diagnosed younger and younger. And is it the environment that's changing? Is it genetics? What is it?
Well, I think a big part of it is this thing right here. It's the phone. And to have that be like kid. I read this story about a kid. He took a picture book and he was trying to zoom in with his fingers, and he started crying because he couldn't zoom in on the right. So at like a toddler age, kids aren't they're so learning that every ding and every technology moment is so important. And that gives so much anxiety, because it's like, unless I can match what I'm seeing on Instagram, unless I can be the person that I'm seeing on Snapchat and handle hundreds of dings and alerts coming in all the time, then I'm not on par with my peers. So a huge lesson in the book is learning to be present, learning to be here in the moment, to not be guided by all the outside messages that are coming through on your phone, how to just be with a human being. In my mind, that's like, we're talking about the pandemic right now. To be a quality human being with grit and resilience right now during the pandemic, one of the best ways is to be present with each person in each moment, because worrying about all the other stuff won't help anything. But if I'm here with you right now, Jenny, like that's how you and I can connect and make a difference. So that's one of the key lessons.
Well said. So well said. That gift, it's a true gift. It's a real true gift when you can hold the space and be present with somebody, because how many times are we talking to people and you see the glaze over? You know,
right.
Everyone
is reaching for the phone, or like, oh, wait, they're looking off to the side. And it's like, are you here? Why am I here with you if you're not here too?
Right. And, you know, and I know that we're all guilty of doing it with our kids, especially if their stories are boring and mundane. But it's so important. And I'm so grateful. If there's one thing that I've taught my son, it's the gift of presence. And he will remind me of it. That's how schooled he is and how wise he is from an early age on to question his thoughts, his bad thoughts. That if he tries to go in the future, he says, my ego, my thoughts are trying to take me to the future, but I'm going to come right back to the present. And
that's awesome.
Hear him. It's amazing. And then I'll say something where I'm like, well, I'm kind of worried about that. And he goes, why are you going into the future? Come right back and join me in the present, because what's in the present moment, right, Mom? Look around, peace. And I'm like, I might have screwed up a bunch of things, but at least I got that one.
No, that is critical. That's key. There's this guy, Ernest Shackleton, went to Antarctica. His ship sank. He has all these men to rescue. And I think he did it by being there, present in the moment, because he wasn't saying, oh, shoot, the boat sank, and wallowing in his guilt in the past. And he wasn't saying, what are we going to do when we reach the edge of this floating iceberg that we're on, this continent-sized iceberg? He's saying, let's just deal with each moment as it comes. And the fact that you taught that to your son, you taught an Antarctic explorer survival lesson to him without even realizing it.
I did. And I love the fact that he's my little teacher, throwing it right back in me when I, when I don't have the knowings in that moment. Our kids are
our best teachers. Yeah.
They really, really are. I can't tell you how happy I am and grateful. And I know other moms out there feel the same way. And your publisher was right. We needed this book. We needed it. And from just talking with you, John Beede, I'm so glad it was you that did it. Honestly, I can't wait to finish this. The Warrior Challenge, 8 quests for boys to grow up with kindness, courage, and grit. I cannot wait to pass this down to my son when I'm done with it. I hope you guys do too. The Warrior Challenge. Pick it up now. John Beede, keep up the great work. Come back. I'm sure you're going to have, the way though you live your life, I'm sure you're going to have plenty more stories to talk about. So keep up the amazing work.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on.
Of course. I appreciate you too. We'll be right back, guys.